Hey there, it's Jim and Debbie with another Midday Minute. Welcome back, everybody. Debbie, how you been doing?
Been hanging in there, Jim. Hanging in there.
Now, yeah, me as well. Crazy times.
Yes.
Today's episode of the Midday Minute is going to be all about the hoop shoot, that other program of ours. We're going to have Makenna Cannon on the show, first time on the show.
Yeah, excited about that.
Now,
She's great.
Yeah, she is great. And we'll have a nice discussion about some of the challenges that we're facing with the hoop shoot as we try to put a plan together to move forward for the 2020-21 season. But before we get to that, we have a contest winner announced for our weekly comment contest. Debbie, the winner is?
Bev Hamby.
Our old friend Bev Hamby. Congratulations, Bev.
Yeah, congratulations, Bev. Way to go.
Bev, we're going to need you to tell us in the comments below or by emailing enf@elks.org. Tell us how you would like to use your $50 soft credit toward an ENF-funded program of your choice. Tell us the program, and we will get that gift going. Now, how did Bev win?
Well, she commented below after watching our last episode with the hashtag ENF Midday.
That's all it takes.
Comment That's all it takes.
Tell us what you think about it. And you will be entered in a random drawing to win a $50 soft credit. Congratulations again, Beth. So again, before we get to McKenna, a couple of announcements. Number one, Debbie, we are very excited to be bringing very soon, possibly as soon as next week, we will be introducing a new show to the channel called 20 for 20.
And what's that about, Jim?
Well, not us, but a few other staff members, John Kabula, our Elks Scholar Fellow who was on the show last week, also Christine Robinson and Kathleen Draper from our communications department are going to sit down and interview each of the top 20 most valuable students. And we're going to bring those interviews to you in a series of episodes called 20 for 20 right here on the channel, hopefully starting as soon as next week. I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. Catchy title and probably even catchier conversations.
It should be. I mean, it's we need opportunity. We need to do things differently. In the past, we've been profiling our top 20 winners and putting together short videos. We can't do that right now, but so we're going to do it in interview format, and hopefully it'll be an entertaining show for you all to watch.
Very 2020, actually.
Yep. And also, we have some Spotlight Grant news to share. Those went live yesterday. How are we doing so far, Debbie?
Well, Jim, they did go live yesterday, and we already have 88 approved, and I think like almost 90, 86, close to, I think it was about 86, waiting to be reviewed and approved. So, in other words, submitted.
$2,000 grants available to every lodge, regardless of ENF giving.
Right. And we've built in additional flexibility this year so that lodges can, use them for a donation to address issues that have come up because of the pandemic. That is obviously something that wasn't a possibility last year, but we are all about flexibility and rising to the occasion. So we started with those $3.7 million in Spotlight grants yesterday.
Yep. And also on the Veteran Service Commission side, the Freedom Grants went live, and those things are going like hotcakes as we predicted.
Going like hotcakes. 90 approved, I believe, and 200 submitted.
And I think there are 325 or 350 available or so. So if you're hoping to get one of those done, you may want to stop watching, get over there, get your application in if it's not too late already by the time this airs.
Right.
Okay. Without further ado, then, why don't we introduce our guest this episode? She is Makenna Cannon. Now, Debbie, how long has McKenna been running the Hoop Shoot program for us? McKenna, welcome.
Hi, McKenna.
Hi.
Been running the Hoop Shoot for us for about 2 years.
Thanks for having me.
So last year, this past Hoop Shoot would have been your second national finals, correct?
Correct.
Then you had to go and cancel it. So, what have you been doing with all your free time?
Well, I've been working a lot on what we're going to be doing for the next season. We're thinking about guidelines, and we've been reading a lot of resources.
So let's establish the timeline for our viewers. Typically, the season would launch September-ish in the fall, and kind of it's variable, right?
Correct, yeah.
Now we know when the regional contests, those are set, right? And the national finals is set. And then everything works backward from there, right? The states are gonna have a date, so districts have to need to be done. The lodges need to be done by districts, et cetera. But that's a general time frame. The season usually launches in the fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct, yeah.
And so we normally send out supplies to the lodges and mailing and guidance, et cetera, in
August. So those materials typically drop in mid to early August, depending on the year, so that the lodge contest can kick off by the earliest, typically, first week of September. We see lodges hosting contests.
Okay, so we have about 2 months to figure out what the heck we're going to do.
Right.
And that's challenging. Why don't we tell everybody why that's so challenging? In case you haven't heard, there's a pandemic.
In case you haven't heard, there's a pandemic. And of course, that comes with a whole new wave and set of challenges for not only us, but obviously our volunteers at all the levels, right? And, with this pandemic, there are new guidelines, which seems to be daily, I think, from what I've been seeing and reading in the news, and I'm sure you guys too. So what we've been doing is just reading and capturing those as much as possible, so that we can have conversations like this about what we're going to do in these 2 months, and how we're going to continue to look at things as they change over the course of these 2 months, so we can have those materials and an idea of how we move forward by August. So that's really what we've been doing so far.
Right, and although states are reopening everywhere right now, that's not necessarily because things have gotten safer.
Right.
Newsflash. So, we have a responsibility to make sure that we can keep our participants safe and the family safe, our volunteers safe, and our staff safe. And so we are looking at various resources. The CDC website is, there's just a ton of research out there, but also a number of organizations whose youth sports organizations are publishing guidelines and suggestions as well that we're monitoring, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So in conjunction with the CDC, we've been looking at the High School Federation of Sports, and also the Aspen Institute has been putting out a lot of helpful information.
You also attended a virtual conference held by the Junior NBA too, right?
Correct, yes. So the Junior NBA also held their annual conference virtually this year. And a lot of emphasis was placed on, obviously, how do we connect, how do we engage in uncertain times. So that was very helpful to hear kind of, as we move forward, our emphasis should always be on how do we stay in touch? How do we interact with our participants? So that's something we're definitely really focusing on moving forward is, when, we do return to the next season, how do we do that in a way that's safe, in a way that engages everybody as much as possible?
Right. What is the Hoop Shoot program? It's not,
right.
It's the contest is the vehicle for what the program teaches, right? That piece of it is the most important part, what we're teaching, how we develop grid. And are there other ways we can do that until it's safe to return to the gym and return to the free throw line, as it were, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think one of the biggest issues that we face as we try to figure out how to move forward is that the Elks, we do not own the means of production here, right? We don't own gyms and basketball courts. So that means we need to we partner with organizations who have those gyms, such as schools and park districts, and they are operating under their own guidelines, right? Like the current CDC guidelines recommends to schools not to allow outside organizations in unless they're essential, right?
Yeah.
So it could be very difficult, and this could vary from state to state, but we expect it'll be very difficult for lodges to secure gyms at schools for contests.
Yeah, unfortunately, that will probably be an issue as we move forward. Like you said, they're encouraging schools to limit outside interactions as much as possible. Having those volunteers and attendees in for contests is not something that is being recommended. The guidance is definitely pushing towards people having outdoor competitions and contests as much as possible. The open air is great. However, you know, like you said before, parks have their own guidelines, right?
Yes, right.
Might be closed.
I think we lost my co-host Debbie, but hopefully she'll bounce back in. Yeah, parks have their own guidelines as well, and if there's a period of sustained transmission, they're under guidance to shut down parks and parks facilities. So again, we could secure a park gym, for example, and then have that pulled out from under us, much like what happened in March when we started losing regional contests due to facility closures.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably something we're going to have to be prepared for no matter what. Even if, like you said, you're able to secure a school gym or a park location for your contest, it might be pulled out under you at the last minute due to a number of factors. You know, if there's a case, if there's, you know, different mandates put out, we have to be prepared for kind of those ever fluctuating guidelines, right? Like there could be something that really changes course.
Look who's joining us again. Debbie's back. Right, and it's far from ideal. Welcome back, Debbie.
Thank you.
It's far from ideal to make the decision, for example, if we do, to launch the season and then be right back where we started, where we're ending things prematurely. I mean, that's not satisfying for anyone. But before we tackle that, let's say, you're able, our lodges are able to secure a gym somewhere, right? They're able to have a contest. We're still, you know, we would anticipate there being strict social distancing guidelines, spacing people out, staggering the contests, limiting spectators, right? Yeah. You know, like what was the high school sports organization was, what do they call it again? The National Federation of High School Sports. Like they're saying until there's a vaccine or, you know, herd immunity, that the new normal is going to be masks. So does that mean kids shooting in masks? Does that mean probably the line judges and the rebound?
I would say everybody entering in the gym or location for the contest would be in a mask, going off of these guidelines currently.
And those same guidelines are saying, you know, don't share equipment. So, you know, we would think, okay, if we do roll forward, we probably recommend kids bring their own balls. And like, how try hard are we going to be in this weird year, right? Are people going to complain about, you know, the different balls being used and focus on those little, you know what I mean? Like we're trying to make the best of a bad situation, and then you have those sorts of issues. But even if kids have their own balls that they've brought and may not be uniform, you have rebounders who are touching the balls and shooting back. So it's, you know, all sorts of things that we need to worry about. And again, these guidelines change. And the latest we've seen are from May 29th, a couple days ago. But there could, you know, new guidelines could come out, and new guidelines could be posted after we decide how to move forward. And at some point, we do have to decide so that we can develop the materials that we need to share. Right? We can only be so nimble. Right.
I was really hoping that as I stepped, you know, off this call, that you guys were going to solve these problems. But it seems as if the uncertainty continues.
Unfortunately, so yeah.
I mean, it is, Jim, you bring up so many good points, right? When we made at that time, very, very difficult decision to cancel the finals back in mid-March, which of course seems like a lifetime ago, right? And at this point, it seems like, of course, that was the obvious thing that we had to do. But like you just said, we could make a decision on how we want to move forward, and then that's going to be stymied at some point because of these other things that could be happening, second waves and other shutdowns. And I think that that's how we'll have to approach this, is being as nimble as possible. And that really, if we can put that out front early and often, then hopefully our volunteers and our participants are going to understand that. Because as we said back in March, like, we aren't the only people that are experiencing this at this point. Now everybody is experiencing this. Like, you know, kids don't even know if they're going to be back in school, right?
Well, and I think most of the families, you know, they're participating in sports, right, and other activities. They're seeing what's happening, and they're whatever we throw at them is probably going to be what they're experiencing from other organizations. But, you know, I just want to, let's shift back to, you just mentioned, you know, we've been talking about what happened in March when we had made the decision in real time to cancel the first wave of regional competitions. McKenna, why don't you tell our viewers where you were when all that was going down?
Yeah, when we made those decisions, I was in Portland, Maine, there for the New England Region 6 contest, which is going to be held the next day. When we made those decisions to cancel the wave of regionals, and it was a very hard day for all the volunteers there.
Yeah, but I mean, they all, like, the leadership team there was all behind the decision.
Yeah, no, they came to that decision
right.
pretty unanimously. Within minutes, they were like, we cannot move forward. Yeah.
Right. And now this was the first regional contest you had attended. We'd sent you in the field to your first.
Yeah.
Right.
It was my second regional contest.
Oh, you had been to one other one. Okay.
Yes. So this was my first regional contest going flying solo.
Okay.
And yeah, so unfortunately didn't get to see the contest take place.
Well, just as a reminder to everybody that that was on March 12th, actually, you know, so
right.
That was that day, actually, I think was actually the one day that everything started being canceled, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the families from the Region 6 area were saying like, but they just shut down my school. How do you think I'm going to go drive up there? You know, so that was all unfolding.
Yes.
It just, the whole situation back then just accelerated so rapidly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You know, and then of course, so we had 8 set to run that day, or 7.
We had we had 7.
7, and we got 4 of them done. 3 of them we had to cancel, and then we made a decision that the following Monday to cancel the next round, the next 5, and the finals, right? Just
right. And we've been working from home basically ever since.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that was Monday, March 16th. So
yeah, I flew home and basically I've been home since. So
right. So, I mean, I guess the takeaway for our viewers is, you know, we're still trying to figure it out. The guidelines are shifting, so we're working with sort of a moving goal line. You know, we're trying to be sensible. We're trying to keep in mind what the point of the Hoop Shoot program is. And again, it isn't the tournament. The tournament is the vehicle. So, you know, how do we engage our families and our participants and keep them involved if there's another season that's either ended prematurely or it doesn't happen at all? Like, what can we do?
Right.
And we can plan for those sorts of things even if the season ends up happening. So at least we can hedge our bets that way, right? Have we given any thought to some things that we might be doing or some ways to do this all virtually?
Yeah, that has definitely been part of our discussions over the last couple of weeks. One of the aspects that I found most impactful from my attendance at the virtual conference, the Junior NBA conference, was the idea that to engage participants and to stay connected, one of the best ways to do that is through service. So we've been talking about extending our Hoop Shoot Assist program that we do at the finals in through next season, and really encouraging our families and participants to serve in their communities as possible, or just engage as much as possible amongst those communities. So that's definitely something we'd like to see, you know, into next season, that we can do even if contests take place as normal.
Right. For those who don't know, Hoop Shoot Assist is Thursday night at the national finals. We bring the families together, the participants, their families, Elks volunteers together to assemble no-sew fleece blankets, which we then donate to the VA in the Chicago area for veterans experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the bottom line is Hoop Shoot Assist is a way for us to share our values with the participants and expose them to another plank of the Elks philanthropy. So that sort of thing we can continue. What about, I mean, is there ways to, you know, to still engage in the important part of the free throw contest? One of the important parts is the goal setting aspect, and then working hard to achieve those goals. So, you know, we thought it all about trying to implement something there where people are doing that sort of thing, where they're practicing, building up their skills, but more important, learning that lesson of how hard work can improve performance from home. We thought
Yeah.
ahead all about that.
Yeah, that is something we've been working on as well, with virtual shoot off. For instance, upcoming challenge on social media that we're calling the Hamper hoop shoot.
Right.
Yeah, which is going to be a at-home virtual challenge for our participants to, score baskets into a hamper.
Right. And this is intended to be a little bit more fun than the actual
Yes.
hoop shoot competition, right?
Exactly.
We're going to be hopefully lighting up social media with the Hamper Hoop Shoot hashtag. And I think it's scheduled for June 15th through July 15th, but we're going to be encouraging past and present hoop shooters, their families, our Elks volunteers, any of our constituents to record themselves making shots of something into laundry baskets or hampers or garbage cans, whatever, and sharing that on social media. So
Peach baskets.
And although it's supposed to be fun, our intent is to have the backboard judge the video content and select a winner to receive a prize to be determined, right?
Exactly, yeah. So there's going to be some incentive to participate and to really hone your hamper hoop shoot skills.
While we continue to think and deliberate on what the hoop shoot is going to look like moving forward, we want people to be thinking about the hoop shoot, and this is one of the ways we plan to do that. What about those contestants who were on the road to Chicago and then had the road blocked? No fault of their own. Are we doing anything for them?
Yes. So we have been in contact with those families as soon as last week about putting together some, promotional items for them. So for those kids that went through to the regional contests, we're putting together some trading cards for them, and we are putting together posters for the kids that were stopped just short of the regional contests, so that they have some commemorative items for their journey, because they definitely deserve it. They made it to the pinnacle that they could before the journey was stopped prematurely. So we have those coming up for them, and then we're going to try to engage kids with our backboard and our regional directors in the future, and get them virtually talking. So we're looking forward to that as well.
A virtual trading card swap and
Exactly.
virtual, like a Zoom gathering, so that they can talk to one another about their experiences and all of that. So we have 11 backboard members to rely on, and 12 regional directors. So got a solid team, leadership team.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we're like so many other organizations, we're all trying to figure this out, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to that end, it could be, again, we don't know yet, but we're going to need to at least know what we want to do soon so we can ramp up. But it could be proceeding with strict social distancing guidelines and a firm understanding that it could end at any time, or that we might reach the finish line without everybody, right? It could be, where we just are keeping it local, because again, right now, like the highest risk for youth sports is traveling.
Right.
Keeping it within your geographic area is the next highest risk, but the highest risk is the travel component.
Yeah. There's so many aspects of the hoop shoot contest that day that really do lend themselves to good practices and social distancing and
Right. It's not a full contact. Right. Basketball might be full contact, but free throw shooting is not.
Right. So we're confident in that regard. We can do a lot of this, put in place a lot of the safety measures. But then as you talk about travel and all of that, it gets a lot more complicated. So that the continuum of low risk to high risk, you can see how you can easily jump from to high risk right away. So
we have a lot to figure out. We have a lot of work to do, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And I'm glad that falls squarely on the shoulders of you two.
We've got this.
Yes.
Yeah. Debbie, you got anything else for McKenna?
No, I think that she captured it. She's pointed out the considerations that we need to keep in mind, and the challenges that we face. And then of course, we talk about this all the time. So we're continuing to think about just the different options that we're faced with, and are looking to, July 31st, around then, early August, to kind of to be pointed in one direction, with an understanding that direction might need to change.
Right. The rough timeline is that we expect to meet at the end of this month via video conference with our advisory committee, and sort of kind of have a conversation very much like what we've had right now, and try to figure out the best way to try to move forward. And then we'll build towards that and kind of have a point of no, like a crossing the Rubicon point, maybe at the end of July, right? Mm-hmm. And then be ready to push it out, what we're doing in August, mid-August. That's kind of the timeline, right?
Yep. That is the timeline for sure right now.
All right. McKenna, you got any final thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I think I've captured it all.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for taking time out to join us. I'm sure you're really busy in isolation, right?
Yes.
But for taking some time out from your workday to chat with us and keep us posted on what's happening with the hoop shoot.
Yep.
And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm going to say goodbye to you right now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, McKenna.
All right, she's gone.
Sorry about my technical difficulties there.
Oh, I think we handled it okay. I mean, the bottom line is we're on it as far as we're monitoring all the guidance that we can. We're not in this alone. All youth sports organizations, youth serving organizations are dealing with these same challenges. There's tons of research out there, tons of expert guidance and opinions, and we're availing ourselves of that material and trying to come up with the best possible plan for the Hoop Shoot program.
Right. I mean, that's all we can do, right? It's a national program, but our lodges are in 1,865 communities across the country, and they might have varying guidance and guidelines that are happening regarding the pandemic. So we can only do our best in terms of looking at it through the lens of the national program.
All right. Once again, comment below with the hashtag ENF Midday. Tell us what you thought of the episode or what you'd like us to cover in an upcoming episode, and you will be entered into a contest, into a drawing to win a $50 soft credit to the ENF funded program of your choice. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you didn't. Either way, feel free to share it. And if you're not already a subscriber, why don't you go ahead and subscribe and tap that bell so you'll be notified every time we post new content. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.